Hi, Squid here, demon.com, and this is a quick look at how I set up GSA Search Engine Ranker to get high quality links, ones that will hopefully last for a while as well. What this isn't is an article on setting up GSA Search Engine Ranker. Just basically, I'll post some of that stuff underneath here on demon.com. This isn't what this is about, this is just my setup. There's a couple of things I can't show you, unfortunately, such as my own proxies and them working for obvious reasons, so you just have to take my word for that. Okay, we'll get straight off with where to submit. This is your first important choice. Now you'll see where I've ticked and not ticked there. Articles, blog comments, forums, social bookmarks, networks, web2s and wikis. If I had a good document, PDF, I'd use it. If I had a good MP4, I would also send out a video. The rest I wouldn't use at all. Not for high quality links, because they're either not high quality by trackback isn't a high quality link, and neither really is a pingback, or an indexing link, or they're just more often than not quite spammy sites like guestbooks and image comments, and too many directories is not that good either. What you'll find the common factor here is most of them allow you to put content on. Forums not so much, the rest quite a bit of content. Okay, moving over to here. Use a random URL. It doesn't really matter which one you use. It'll either cycle through URLs or use a random one depending on which you check. And this particular one here has got about 20 URLs from a site that I'm indexing. You all know this site. This is the site I always use in my examples, so there's no big reveal there. Keywords. This isn't categories. It's very important that you understand this isn't categories, this is keywords. So what you need is, if you want to get links that are relevant, pick relevant keywords. These are the words that are actually going to be typed into the search engines just as you would, and then the results are going to be looked through the first 100 or first 1,000 results on that search engine. So keep them relevant. This is for scooters and mopeds, motorbikes, etc. And towards the end, I've gone a little bit broad niche, sport and vacation. Use collected keywords from target sites. So if a keyword appears multiple times on tags or in categories within sites that it finds here, GSA will learn that that keyword must be relevant, and then it will add it, it'll append it. Now you won't actually see it appended, but it will be. Use collected keywords to find new target sites. So this means it can carry on forever. It will take ages to go through those, but it will carry on. Now the anchor text. Now this is quite important. I never put less than 20 anchor texts in here. Variations on a theme, things slightly off a theme. So I've got moped dealer, moped for sale, scooter dealer, scooter for sale, 50cc scooter, loads more, and it goes off the screen there. UK scooters and whatnot. So each individual one, if you've got 30, each individual one is only going to be used about 3.3% of the time. However, you will notice that there are word scooter, the word moped, the word 50cc and whatnot appears multiple times. So you need to water that down still further, because otherwise you could still, for individual words, not phrases, you could still hobble yourself. Generic anchor text I use between 20 and 30% of the time. Domain as anchor text I use between 20 and 30% of the time. So this really, in this case, this is a 60% subset of the whole lot. So 20% of the time it won't, 40% of the time it won't use these at all, it will use those. So rather than about 3.3%, you're looking at about 2%, just under 2% of the time each one of those is going to be used. You can increase those a little bit. You can go to all this trouble. This doesn't really make a lot of difference. This is just to allow you, if you've got partials and secondaries and brandings, fine, but you can stick those up there and work out your own percentage based on how often, what percentage of them up there are included. So if you've got 10 words up here and one of them is a branding word, then 10% of your links are going to be branded links. I mean, yes, you can use that if you want to, but it's not something I tend to use. Quite a bit of stuff here in terms of content. Now, I tend to either use Content Machine, I tend to get it written, except for the blog comment, which I always do myself, and I use, in this case, I use Spinchimp. I write 10, 15, 20 word comments in Spinchimp on separate lines. Then I get Spinchimp to spin them, and I just check the spin over once, and then I use the join as one line feature, which makes them all into one. So 10 comments, 15 words each, then spin them, so suddenly you've got, most words have got 5 or 6 variants, and then bring them all together in one line, so you've suddenly got thousands and thousands of variations there. And that takes about 10 minutes to do. Spinchimp isn't the only thing that can do it. Spinner Chief, and even the best spinner might be able to do it, probably can do that. It's been a while since I used it, I'm not a big fan. Right, options. Ask all services to fill in captures. Now I use GSA Capture Breaker, which is service number 1. I also use Death by Capture, Capture 2, so that ensures that both are being used. Try up to 5 times. If a form can't be filled in, I skip it, otherwise the forms keep popping up. Some will pop up anyway, just ignore them. If you happen to be looking and you know an answer, fill one in, but whatever. Here's one that's quite controversial: skip hard to solve captures. Now this is a judgment call you're going to have to make depending on how many links the rest of your campaign is set to build up, and here's why. Hard to solve captures, there's 2 really, but the main one is a reCAPTCHA, which is Google's proprietary anti-spam solution. And every time reCAPTCHA comes up, it involves your IP address, or the IP address that's trying to post the content or solve the captcha, being transmitted to Google. So if you're, for instance, posting on Plig sites, and there are thousands of Plig sites, every time you go to one, your IP address is going to be revealed to Google. Even though you haven't gone to Google, you've not scraped Google, the sites can be off something else, the fact is reCAPTCHA is Google. They own it. And so your IP address will be revealed. By skipping hard to solve captures, you get rid of the risk of your IP, your proxies being banned by Google, because they monitor them exactly the same way as they do, or seem to, in exactly the same way as they do as if when you do a search query. Be very careful. However, if you're only going to post to a very specific set of criteria, PR of 3 or greater, outbound links of 100 or less, things like that, then there's not going to be that many captures per day you're going to want to solve anyway. And if you've got sort of 20 or 30 private proxies, it may be that each one only tries 2 or 3 times a day. But that's a judgment call. That really depends on the size of your niche, how spammy your niche is, or how populated with content your niche is. So how busy GSA is going to be, how high you set the bar in terms of PR, how low you set the bar in terms of outbound links. The more sites GSA goes to, and the more your criteria you're going to set later apply to, the more often you're going to make calls to reCAPTCHA. That's entirely up to you, and I can't answer that for you. What I tend to find is with PR 3 or greater and with outbound links under or less, you can untick this because there are that few calls. But that will vary from niche to niche. Okay, moving on. Verified links must have exact URL. I set this to yes in case I want to do tiered linking later. So if I want to set up another project to link to my first tier project, say I've set up a very high project with only PR3 or greater links, and then I want to link to that to find it, not rather than send it to an indexing service with PR1 or greater links, PR1 and 2 links, then you need to have the exact URL. Otherwise, GSA is going to waste its time posting to pages or linking to pages where your link doesn't exist, your first tier link doesn't exist. So skip engines with moving pages, things like that. I don't re-verify backlinks at all during the day. Not interested in that. You can set it. You can set it to re-verify. You can right-click on the project and get it to re-verify, and I do that once every 2 or 3 days. But when I'm happy for it to do it, send verified link to indexer service. If you've got GSA SEO indexer and you want to use that, and you're not going to do tiered linking using GSA, then that's fine. Use character spinning when possible. You may want to do that. However, some of the weirder characters that are used, Google's now got a bit smart to character spinning. Stuff that looks readable but actually uses different ASCII or ANSI character set numbers to represent, it looks readable, but in fact it's actually a different character displayed on the screen. Well, Google's got a bit clever with that and sort of understands how that's used. But again, you can use it a little bit if you want to. I don't put typos in. My content's rich enough to not bother. Content Machine produces such a massive array of content, I don't need to fight duplicate content in another method. I think each article that Content Machine produces on this topic is capable of, it's a 9-figure number of very good different permutations, so I don't bother with that. And I'm not only going to be producing a couple of 100 links anyway, so really not required, but it may be for you, it may be something you want to consider. Or try to place a URL with an anchor text in description or comments. Yeah, you can try that. Comments, they are more valuable, but they are harder to get. It's up to you whether you want to try that. Blog comments aren't my main way of looking at it, but yeah, that's okay. Continue to try to post to a site fail before. No. Don't really bother with that. there's that many sites out there to keep going back to one that's failed, when there's other ones out there that probably aren't going to fail. Seems a bit of a waste of time, but it may be you have a specific site list that you've proven and you want to tick that. But if you're just letting GSA run, I'd leave that as unchecked. Right, here's the next area that can make a big difference. Now, quite a few people don't know you can right click on this here. If you right click, check all, and you can see there are 852 search engines. Check all, check none. Check by mass, check by country, check by language, check by extended syntax. So what I find the best one is actually to check by language. It's very simple. I check all English sites, and there are 130. Excuse me. There are 130 English search engines in this list, which is plenty. I don't just use Google. Now, answering a question, you're probably thinking, well, won't some of those not be Google indexed sites that you're doing to? Yes, there will be. But it's a very small percentage. Google covers well over, if you're only setting to English, Google covers well over 90% of all English sites in the world. Well over 90%. It's closer to 96%. So there will be some sites that are found by these other search engines that aren't indexed in Google, but it will be 4% or less. And to be honest, the variation you get, the fact that your proxies will last much longer because you're not hitting Google over and over again, going to Google, requesting Google, you're requesting from 130 different sites. So Google just takes its turn in a list of 130. Now, there are several English Googles on here, I should say. You've got Google UK, you've got Google.com, I think you've got the Aussie Google, you've got South African Google, whatever. But, again, they all take their turn. There are 115, 20 sites that aren't Google that will be used. So Google doesn't get hit that often with a search query. So it's going to make your proxies last a hell of a lot longer. Use URLs from global site list if enabled. Always use keywords to find targets. This is interesting because we're used to Google working in a certain way. But some search engines don't work the same as Google at all. And GSA understands the difference between search engines that work like Google and ones that just are completely different, that you wouldn't know how to use them if you'd only grown up with Google. And it knows the difference. I tend to use that. Adding stop words helps. You get a good variation. It also stops you from being seen as a spammer. That's a good idea. And I've set the 20% of the time. You might want to up that. Use URLs from global site list if enabled. Only those that are verified. I don't want to waste time just those identified submitted, and certainly not those that have already failed. Use URLs linking the same verified URL. You can do that, supported by some engines only. I have it ticked. It doesn't make a lot of difference. I've run side-by-side tests with this, and it really makes very little difference. So for the sake of maybe getting the extra link a day or 2 links a day, I'll do that. Okay. Filter URLs. Skip sites with more than 150 outgoing links on one page. This is an area of controversy. I know people will argue with me with this. They may think 150 is too high. Outgoing links on one page. There's an idea here that an outgoing link, you're talking an outgoing link to another domain. I've tested this several times, and it's not necessarily, that's not what this means. It could be an outgoing link to another URL on the same domain. I'm sure that's what it means, looking at what it posts to and what it doesn't post to, and the failure messages that pop up. Scroll up while GSA is running. Now, 150 may seem a lot, but it's really not. Not if you're including navigational links from within the same site, which I'm pretty certain GSA does. Some sites, even just in the footer, that little footer area at the bottom, they can look nice and clean, hardly any outbounds. They can have 10 or 12 just in that. Whoever designed the site, XML certification, contact us and about us page and all that kind of stuff, just down that little bottom footer area, and they all count. And you'll reach it, if a site with decent navigation, maybe a category or tags bar or something like that on the left or right hand side, can hit 100, 150 very, very quickly. If you set it to below 50, you will be wiping out thousands of sites that don't have a single third-party link on them. And I know some people say, well, I've tested and that's not what I found. This is outbound links to other domains. Well, I've tested as well, and I've seen it as outbound links to any other URL including just navigational links to the same site. So I'm sticking that to 150. You know, if you want to, what I'll say is if you put that much lower than 100, you will hugely reduce the number of links you're going to create. And when you go and check your links, you know, with this 150, they'll all be good. They won't be on spam. Very few will be on spammy sites. Okay, moving on. Only want to get links that have PageRank above 1, and I don't skip also unknown PageRank and use the PageRank as a domain rather than a subdomain. Very important. If you use unknown PR, if you don't skip unknown PR, most of your links will be unknown PR. The vast majority will, and those unknown PR will be non-page ranked or page rank 0. Which isn't what you want. So always tick that, it's vital. Now you may want to put this to 2 or 3. Now this is an exponential rise. The number of sites you'll get with PR0 will be 50 times higher than you get on PR1. PR1 will be 20 times higher than PR2. By the time you get to sort of PR7 or 8, you'll be lucky to get 1 link every 2 or 3 days if you put that to 7 or 8. 1 means every site has PR, must have PR, and it can't have unknown PR. So that's good. If you want excellent link set, you may want to push that to 2, and at a stretch push it to 3. If you go above 3, you're going to be making very, very few links indeed. Now I've checked this as well, and a PR above 8, because I don't want to be hitting Blogger and WordPress.com and sites and Tumblr and sites like that, the PR9 or whatever. I don't want to be going to those and trying to create links on those. You may want to put that down to above PR7. So include 7, but not 8 or 9 if you do that. In fact, I will, because I don't want links from those sites, because a lot of them are the industry standard sites, the sort of the Google sites and whatnot, and I don't want to be trying to create links on those and drawing attention to myself in that way. Anchor text, type of backlinks to create. You'll notice by default that one of these isn't checked. I think it's that one. So if you've got an article, check it just to do that. I'll leave all this blank. I don't care about the keywords. All that checking has been done previously. Skip sites the following words appear. Unless you're promoting a porn or adult site, then you'll probably want to keep that. If you've got skip sites the following words appear in URL domain, if you've got a blacklist, this is a good place to put it. So if you've got a couple of people in your own sites, for instance, you can actually put your site URL in there, and it won't try and create links on your own site. You could have more than one site. You could have a network of sites that you don't want to link to. So say I had mopeddealer.co.uk, which this is. I had motorbike UK and scooterman.co.uk and all that. And of course, this GSA is very clever, and it finds those sites very quickly because it thinks they're exactly on niche, and there's lots of pages. It starts spamming my own site with bloody links who are misses. So I just put the title of the URLs in there, and it doesn't go to them, which is handy. Skip sites from the following countries. I'll leave that up to you. There is some benefit I've read about not, Korean sites, some of the former Soviet republics, not linking to those. 6 of one, half dozen the other. I tend not to. A couple of other things before we finish. Always use email verification. If you don't put an email address in there, you're not going to get very, very many good links at all. Go to hotmail.com, create one. It takes 5 minutes. What I'd say is when you're in hotmail.com, there's a little cog in the account profile page options. When you open that, enable communication with POP3 devices will not be checked by default. It needs to be checked. Proxies. You can get GSA to scrape proxies, or use something like the excellent new No Hands proxies to scrape proxies for you. But for posting, I would use private proxies. Now, if you're skipping hard to skip captures, then 5 or 10 private proxies will be fine, because you're not scraping with the proxies. Where proxies burn out is with scraping, and scraping from the same source like Google all the time. We're not going to be scraping from the same source very often, and you're only going to be posting to each site once or twice at the most, so proxies aren't vital at all. However, if you don't want your your own personal IP address to get banned by whoever your internet provider is, or if you've got a a server that isn't protected, and that they've got an anti-spam policy, then for goodness sake use proxies. 5 or 10 should probably be enough for most cases. You only need more proxies than that if you're scraping or hitting Google often. As I said earlier, reCAPTCHA is hitting Google often, so be careful about that. Okay, so there's how I set up GSA. It's exactly 20 minutes, so hopefully I'll put this together on demondemon.com. I'll also link to the basic how you run GSA, which is, as I mentioned at the beginning, that isn't what the purpose of this video is about. It's about settings. Hopefully you guys will get some benefit out of it. ScrittyDemon.com, if I can get my words out. Signing off.